They didn't erase him. They chose a slower path. They dismantled him piece by piece. It's never a single strike. It's 1,000 small cuts, administered by people who smile while they do it. When a system sets out to isolate one man, the pressure doesn't stop at him. It spreads outward into the connective tissue of his private life, family, children, partner, until isolation is total. In 2012, an Australian computer programmer walked into a small apartment building in London and asked for political asylum. He wouldn't feel the sun on his skin again for 7 years. This isn't a documentary about leaked documents, classified warfare, or the ethics of whistleblowing. The internet has had that debate 1,000 times over. This is something narrower, an anatomical breakdown of how confinement, surveillance, and time can be used to wear down a human mind. For 2,487 days, the man who disrupted international diplomacy was confined to a room of roughly 20 square meters. Outside his window, police units and round-the-clock cameras. Inside, a slow documented decline. This is the Acheron File on Julian Assange. Not the political symbol, but the case study of what sustained confinement and surveillance did to one person, in full view of the world. When we picture extreme confinement, we picture bars and locks, but this kind of pressure is quieter. It uses architecture. It uses the absence of things: sunlight, air, space, time. Assange's confinement wasn't a cell. It was a converted office on the ground floor of a building in Knightsbridge. No yard, no fresh air, no nature. In the early months, adrenaline kept him sharp. Bodies aren't built for years of absolute stasis. To fight physical deterioration, he exercised for hours in that small room, facing a blank wall. Cut off from sunlight for years, his vitamin D dropped, and by his own doctor's accounts, his health began to erode. Then came the medical crisis. When a dental infection turned serious, authorities refused to guarantee his safe return if he left for treatment. Stepping past the embassy's threshold meant arrest. A private dentist had to be brought in with portable equipment, working around the limits of an office, not a clinic. No one needed to use force. Time and isolation did the damage on their own. But confinement wasn't the deepest wound. The deeper one was the loss of privacy. The moment a sanctuary became something closer to a surveillance chamber. Ecuador had hired a private security firm, UC Global, to protect the embassy. Spanish investigators later found that under a program internally called Operation Hotel, that firm allegedly began feeding footage and audio to outside intelligence contacts, a claim now the subject of an ongoing criminal case in Spain, which UC Global's founder has denied. According to testimony, in that case, hidden microphones were placed inside light fixtures and furniture, and recordings of Assange's meetings, including, reportedly, privileged conversations with his own lawyers, were said to have been shared beyond the embassy's walls. Assange, a network analyst by training, suspected he was being watched long before any of this became public. That suspicion bred real, lasting paranoia. To speak with his attorneys, associates have described him running the shower, to mass conversation with white noise, writing sensitive details on paper that he'd destroy immediately after reading. Imagine knowing, or even just suspecting, that everything you say in what should be your most private moments might be recorded. reported or not, proven or still in court, that fear was real and it shaped years of his life. For years, the public assumed the endgame was simply a courtroom. Then, in 2021, a Yahoo News investigation, citing more than 30 former US officials, reported something far more extreme. According to that reporting, in the wake of the 2017 Vault 7 leaks, which exposed the CIA's own hacking arsenal, senior officials under then CIA Director Mike Pompeo discussed options that went well beyond a criminal case. The agency has never confirmed these details on the record, and Pompeo has publicly disputed elements of the story. So what follows is what sources told reporters, not an established fact. Those sources described early-stage discussions of a forced extraction from the embassy. Some officials, the report said, raised even more extreme scenarios, including ways the threat Assange posed could be ended permanently, framed at times as accidents or confrontations gone wrong. The same reporting suggests the plan stalled, not on ethical grounds, but on practical ones. British soil meant British law, and the botched operation against a close ally risked a diplomatic crisis no one wanted to own. If true, it means the moment never needed a green light. The risk alone is the story. On April 11, 2019, Ecuador revoked his asylum, and the world saw the result. The sharp, combative figure from 2012 was gone. In his place, a disheveled, disoriented man with a long white beard blinking against sunlight led into a van. That image went everywhere, proof to many that paranoia and confinement had finally broken him. But Nils Melzer, the UN's then special rapporteur on torture, later reported a detail that complicates even that. According to Melzer's own account, embassy staff had confiscated Assange's shaving kit roughly 3 months before the arrest. The disheveled look the cameras caught wasn't only decline. By Melzer's telling, part of it was staged, timed to match the image people already expected to see. He was moved to HM Prison Belmarsh, one of Britain's highest security facilities, and for a stretch of his time there, held in isolation for up to 23 hours a day. When Nils Melzer was finally granted access, along with independent medical experts, their assessment was stark. Melzer reported that Assange showed symptoms consistent with prolonged psychological trauma, including memory and concentration problems, serious enough to interfere with preparing his own legal defense. Melzer went further than a medical finding. In his book on the case, he concluded that Assange had faced systematic due process violations, judicial bias, manipulated evidence, and what he described as a media narrative built to isolate and discredit one man before he ever reached a courtroom. It's worth being direct about this. That conclusion is Melzer's own, and UK and US authorities have disputed his torture characterization. But Melzer reached it as a sitting UN official, after reviewing roughly 10,000 pages of case documents, many obtained only through leaks or freedom of information requests, because by his account, the states involved gave him almost no direct cooperation. That's the core of this story. No conviction was required to do the damage. By the time Julian Assange ever stood fully before a court, years of isolation and surveillance had already left their mark. The most damaging pressure isn't always physical. Sometimes it's just time, isolation, and the feeling of being watched. Applied long enough, the Acheron File is closed. Subscribe for the next investigation into how power operates when no one's officially watching.